Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we are so happy to be here on listenvisionlive.com, Sisters in Company, talking about it.
Yes, we are. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us for this 1 hour show. We are going to keep it real. Sharon's going to give it to you with a little chaser.
Yes,
I don't have any chaser. I should have used some chaser Friday night. I didn't, and therefore had me laid out all day yesterday, but that's okay. That's a whole nother story. Countdown to my birthday. I'm getting a year older, so I can't do it like I used to. Yesterday showed me that, but I'm going to try it anyway.
And as her oldest sister, I keep trying to tell her that you can't hang the way you used to hang. We don't recuperate the same, so you got to pace yourself in your 50s.
I haven't learned that lesson yet. I'm trying it. I'm trying.
Yes. We're so excited about today's show, just like every Sunday. This has been an amazing journey. Thank you all so much for joining us on this journey. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as we enjoy it. And we're just coming to do what God has blessed us to do. Yes. And that's to really, really just have some real talk, some straight talk, and to really talk about things that impact our community in the way that we know how to talk about it. So we are here today. And I am so excited. And my scripture today, and it's just that it's not even a scripture, it's just how I feel. God is good all the time. And all absolutely. The time, God is good. Yes. And that's just the way that it is today. Yes. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today is voting. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about voting. As many of my friends know, that I am an elections judge in Maryland in Prince George's County. And I was just so disturbed in 2016 by the low voter turnout. And so I went to election judge training on this past Monday, and I said, we are going to talk about it this Sunday in terms of, what it really means and our individual responsibilities to participate in the process. Because when we don't participate in the process, we get what we get. And that's just the bottom line. And so, not to insult anyone, but everybody knows that African Americans got the right to vote just in 1965. Think about that. That was the year after I was born, actually.
And the year before I was born.
Absolutely. And that particularly happened in the South because the South, of course, wanted to discriminate against blacks and not give them the right to vote. And they would do things like, charge some type of poll tax, give them literacy tests or other means. And that was just to disenfranchise the African Americans. And so those are some things that our ancestors and family members had to go through if they were in the South. And if you've seen any of the movies that represents the Civil Rights era, you already know. Right. You already know, some of the things that they had to go through. And so the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. And it was just really aimed to overcome the legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from exercising their rights to vote, as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment of the Constitution. So before I go into where we are with Maryland, I went and I did some research on the number of people that actually voted in 2016 compared to those who voted in 2008. And roughly around 2008, there were nearly 64% of the voting age citizens of the United States that cast a ballot. In 2016, that number dropped down to like 54% of those eligible that voted. And I remember sitting at the polls excited because, President Obama was out and we were, had Hillary Clinton and number 45 running against each other. And I looked around the room and I said, well, where are the people? Because I remember when President Obama was running, the lines were wrapped around the buildings, down the street, across the street, everywhere. And when I looked around the room, I just couldn't make sense out of why there was just no lines. There were like so many dull moments in the room that it was just incredible. And so, and then people were coming out of the woodworks that I had never seen in the community and trying to vote. And I remember this lady coming up to the table and she said, I haven't voted since 1978 and I refused to vote for a woman. And I was just blown away by that. So at least she came out to vote. A lot of people didn't even come out to vote. They stayed home. And now we are faced with, a situation that our leadership is just ineffective. We are spewing hate. People are emboldened. And so we have got to do better this time. So those of you who are in Maryland, let me just give you a little bit of information. Our primary elections in the state of Maryland will be held from June 14th, 2018 through Thursday, June 21st from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the general election will be held October 25th, 2018 through Thursday, November 1st, 2018 from 10 until 8 p.m. So make sure you mark your calendars to do early voting so that when the general election comes that you have already cast your vote.
So I want to just touch on a couple things that you said, Sharon. One is, don't let the media fool you.
Right. Don't get hoodwinked.
Don't get hoodwinked by the media
Yes.
because, when this last election, a lot of people didn't vote because the media started coming up with these little phrases like voting for the worst of the two evils. That thing burned my soul.
Yes.
And the reason it burned my soul is because men have been the president of this country since its inception. And I never ever heard them say we were voting for the worst, the better of the two evils. Not once. And I've said this on this show before, and I'll say it again. The men who have been in charge of this country has run our country into the ground, and none of them want to take responsibility. And so for them to then start to say, when we have a woman, not only a woman, an experienced woman who, yes, has some baggage, but other than Obama, I don't know any other man who ran for president of this country that didn't have no baggage and a lot of baggage. But somehow the media was able to convince us not to go to the polls. And we see what happened. Now I'm like Whoopi Goldberg, the new guy in the White House is just a fool. He's just acting a fool. And I don't care how his supporters try to spin it. They saying, I don't necessarily agree with what he says or what he tweets, but, it's all about the policies that he's passing. Them policies they're not for us. It's not for the masses. And so as we all just filed our taxes, we could tell that this tax reform wasn't for us. And so you can stay home if you want to, or you can go on Facebook and go on your tangents talking about all of the things that, disenfranchise our community. But, many people who are talking trash on Facebook are the same ones who didn't go and vote. And so this year, in 2018, I need you to show up at the polls or keep your mouth shut. And I need you to do something to further our community. Not just be on Facebook, not just on Twitter tweeting about all of the stuff that's wrong with our community. Let's step up and take care of our own community and stop waiting on the next person to do it. Now, in the state of Virginia, I learned when researching for today's show that Virginia doesn't do what they call early voting. Right. They do can't vote absentee ballots. That means you can't show up on election day. They call it in-person absentee. And so what that means is you can vote up to 45 days prior to election day, which is always the first Tuesday in November, and you can vote there. But guess what? You got to have a valid reason why you can't come to the polls on election day. And some of those reasons are you're a college student, so you need to vote when you can. And if you're a college student, you have to show up, and you have to be prepared to show them what school you go to. If you're a military service man or woman, and you got to be prepared to show them what branch of the service you're in. If you are ill, you have some type of illness or some type of disability that prevents you from going to the polls on election day, you can vote early. So whatever your reasons are, it's no reason to stay home. Get out, let your voices be heard.
And in some states, not all states have early voting or primaries, actually. And so in the state of Maryland, in order to vote in the primary election, you have to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican. Those are the only people, and you can only vote your party in the primary. Then in the gubernatorial election, it does not matter what party you vote for. You can vote for whomever you would like. Now, one of the things that's going on in the country today, which is, I think, is so phenomenal, because and it has to do with our felons, to be very honest with you. A lot of states are now saying, once you do your time, you are now eligible to vote again, because in a lot of states, if you were a felon, a convicted felon, you lost your voting rights, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So there are about 13 or 14 states now who are saying felons can vote once you do your time. And New York State was the most recent state to the governor there to say, look, I'm going to put together an executive order. If you're on parole, you can vote. You don't lose your rights forever. And then some states even have automatic voter registration for its state's residents. And some of those states, and I did not realize this, and I'll read, one is Virginia and one is Maryland. Some other states are Washington State, Iowa, Idaho, Utah, Missouri, Illinois, Arizona, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida, and New Jersey. And so they have automatic voter registration, which just means that when you go and get a driver's license or you renew your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. Now, you don't have to vote. They can't mandate that you vote, but you're just automatically, because what they're trying to do is trying to just take away the barriers that so many citizens have to go and try to register to vote. And voting is just a natural right of this country. And so people shouldn't have to jump through all these hoops just to vote. And so we heard in the news recently that there was a lady who was on parole. I don't remember the state. And she didn't realize that she couldn't vote while she was on parole. Do you know that they gave this lady 5 years? 5 years because she went and attempted to vote. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't hear that story.
And so that's what's happening, and it's real out there. And if people who are trying to stop you from voting, anytime they go through the lengths that they go through, it's important. So don't ever say that voting is not important, because people are out here. There's a machine out here that's trying to stop us from voting. So that means that it's significant. So exercise your right.
Not only that, but when you're exercising your right to vote, take your children with you each and every time, so that they grow up seeing you vote and understanding the importance of voting. I have a college student, and yes, she will be home on election day to cast her vote. We're going to make sure of that. So take your children. It's important. If your kids see you taking it serious and doing it, when they become of age to vote, they will vote. It's so critical to vote in this country. Otherwise, we get what we get, and we see what we're getting right now. We're getting somebody who don't care nothing about most people, including his supporters. And for his supporters to continue to support him through thick and thin, I admire them, because he's not doing one thing to support them. Right. But they are, blindly supporting him regardless. That tax reform bill that he passed was not for his supporters. That was for the 1%. And I'm going to venture out and say everybody that's watching this show is not part of the 1%. And so he didn't do anything for his supporters yet. And so, just make sure you vote, and vote in your local elections.
That's it. That's what's important. That's more important than the presidential
election. Vote in your local elections, because what's going on in our communities is a direct result of us not showing up. Every time there's an election in my county, I go to the polls.
Yes.
We could be voting on whether you start with your right foot or your left foot. I'm going to the polls to vote.
Yes.
So vote in your local elections. Know when voting is. Know what's on the ballot. Know what those amendments are and what they mean to you and your family. And know what the people you voting for stand for. Make sure you know. Don't go there blindly voting Republican or Democrat just because somebody's name is down.
Right.
Make sure you know what they stand for. And if they don't stand for what you stand for, don't do it. And, don't be afraid to run as a candidate.
Oh, wow.
Don't be afraid to do it. If I wasn't a federal worker, I would run for office. I really would, because it's so much we can do. I admire these young kids that started Parkland because of the shooting, getting out there. They making their voices heard. And a lot of them are going to run for office. And so I say, stop waiting for somebody else to do it. Let's step up and do it ourselves.
Yes, and we have 3 callers, so you want to take a few calls on this
absolutely.
topic? Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello? We should be able to hear you. Are you there? Well, we'll try another caller, and maybe you can call back. I'm going to return that person to the queue and try to come back. Let's try to take our second caller. Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello? Well, we'll come back to them. I'm not sure why we can't hear them.
You need to put them on a speaker on your phone? Okay, so anyway. So yes, go out and vote. Run for office. Know who you're voting for. Take your kids to the polls. A lot of parents are raising grandkids. Take the grandkids to the polls. A lot of parents have grown kids living at the house. If they living at your house and they sucking up your free air and they eating your food and using your water, drag them to the poll. Tell them it's a condition of residency. And tell them if they don't go to the polls and vote, they have to move that day. You don't give them a grace period, because you should be warning them all the way up until election day. And if they are laying up in your house for any reason, I don't even care if they work, if they're laying up in your house and they don't go to the polls, tell them they are being evicted, effective immediately.
So let's try to take a call one more time. Hello, welcome to Sisters in Company. Are you there? It sounds dead. Let me.
While she working on that, I'm gonna keep telling y'all about getting these grown people out your house, because that's a whole nother topic we need to talk about. Maybe we did before, but we're gonna talk about it again. Get the grown people out. If you 30, 40, 50, 60, living at home with your parents, you wrong.
So while we have some callers on the line, so I'm not sure why we can't hear them, but we'll keep on going. So it's just important to exercise your right to vote. That's just the bottom line. And so, we come up with all kinds of excuses, but it is so important. There's so many people that really have just literally, and you've heard this, they've died and fought and struggled to give us the right to just be where we are today in this society. And I just believe that we just owe it to them to continue. And voting does matter again. And if you don't think it matters, then just look at what's happening in terms of the redistricting and, trying to keep people away from the polls and, all the misinformation that's being put out there to try to get us to not vote. So I just wanted to talk about that today.
Yes. So it's 3:19. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have our company with us.
Yes, we're excited.
So sit tight, grab something to drink, get you a snack. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Hello. Testing.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live
Thank
show.
you for calling
Hosted by
Studios
me,
for
Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all for your patience. We are still having some technical difficulties with this telephone. I'm not sure. So before we introduce our guests, I'm going to see if I can click on and take a caller real quick. See if it's back up working. Hello, welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It. Can we help you? Hello? I'm thinking if you're on the telephone and listenvisionlive.com at the same time, there may be a delay and a challenge. So we'll try to take your call back shortly. All right, so what we want to talk about today during this half is we want to talk about STEM with our wonderful and beautiful family, friend, sister, Dr. Yvonda Colo. We are so happy that you are here with us, Yvonda, and it's just such an honor to be able to have a conversation around STEM because a lot of people, they've heard of STEM but may not know exactly what STEM is. And so what we're going to do is ask you to introduce yourself to our listening audience and tell us where you're from and what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be a guest today here with my sisters.
Yes.
So as Dr. Cradle stated, I'm Dr. Yvonda Ingram Colo.
Yes. Yes.
And I wear many hats. So one, in my professional position, I am the supervisor of science and STEM for Calvert County Public Schools. But I also have two organizations. One, STEM Girls Shine,
Yes.
which I'll speak to you a little bit more about. And that is an organization for girls promoting, it's building confidence while promoting STEM inquiry. And also, I am the co-founder of Time Out for Africa with my husband, Jonathan Kolo. And that organization is, we do nonprofit work in Nigeria where we also promote STEM and education.
Yes, absolutely. Yolanda is being a little modest, but she hails from Suffolk, Virginia. She attended Virginia State University, and she was a woo-woo.
Yes.
And she is my sorority sister and my sister, and so I just love her, and I'm so glad that she's here to be able to talk about it. And the reason I really wanted her to talk about STEM is that when I went to see the movie Black Panther, STEM was all over the place.
Yes.
And I know that we were all looking at Black Panther from different lenses, but I really want to talk about, what we saw in Black Panther. So what is STEM? What we saw in Black Panther, and what kind of recommendations will you give families and students about considering STEM as a major?
Okay, so STEM, S-T-E-M, is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yes.
And STEM emerged from the need for our economy and our society to really promote these areas for our youth in order to prepare us for the global economy and economic growth for our country. There was a large gap in the students who were earning college degrees in STEM, and definitely a large gap in females earning degrees in STEM.
Yeah.
So STEM is critically important because the nation runs off of all the skills that are used by STEM professionals. So in my work, it's important to look at STEM from an early perspective, because if you're not engaged in STEM activities early in your youth, it's very challenging to just show up to college and want to be have a STEM career.
Right.
The skills with the science, the skills with math, engineering, computer science, they are skills that we all have the capability to do. It's just the exposure.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when I think about STEM, I think about early exposure for all. Once again, my emphasis is a push for girls because the gap for girls is much larger than for other people in STEM. Early exposure, early chances to innovate. So when your kids are in there breaking down the computers, old TVs, when they're looking to see what's going on behind the scenes, those are the types of things we want them to have exposure to. And those are just simple things to move them and get them engaged with being innovative, being creative, really exploring creativity, having a messy kitchen, letting them make that slime. I have a 9-year-old, Naomi Colo, and she's always, looking to mix and make things, so who knows, we may be looking at some type of chemist or chemical engineer. So it's really allowing your own children the opportunity to explore and be creative and not keep them in a box.
Let me ask you a question, Yolanda. What are they doing in the school system to really make STEM interesting to kids? Because my son is in the talented and gifted program when he wants to be. And it's because they say he is really gifted at math. However, he says that his math teacher sucks the whole life out of him. And so that tells me that math teacher is not doing anything creative in the classroom, is not doing anything to keep the interest of the kids in the classroom for them to want to be engaged in STEM. So what are they doing in the public school systems to really help the kids maintain that interest?
Well, as you can imagine, every school district is different.
Right.
I do work in the Maryland School District. I'm Calvert County Public Schools. And so I can speak from that perspective because I work with curriculum and instruction. So one of the key parts about really engaging students is not just teaching them the abstract skills of math or science, but really letting them do some problem solving, really engaging them with some real world application. So those are the types of things that schools should be, and I know that we are really looking to do. We think about our competitions and extracurricular programs where students are engaged in. Students, for example, they're using math and engineering skills to build prosthetic arms, but some of those competitions are coming directly from the Navy. for when we have veterans coming back and when they need, prosthetic limbs. So really making it relevant to something that is really going on really motivates students more than just teaching them the just content in isolation.
So, how did you become interested in the field of science and biology? What was the motivation for you as a child to major in biology?
Well, as you stated, I'm from Suffolk, Virginia.
Yes.
And one of my favorite pastime was playing with that red clay mud in the backyard.
Yes.
But I was just always curious about things, and that's really one of the great skills about STEM. What is it that you're curious about? I was always interested in the human body. Always wanted to know why did things work the way that they work. So I just really excelled in those math and science classes, particularly the biological sciences for me. And once again, I went to Virginia State University. I majored in biology. And one of the things for me, which is one of the motivations for me to really try to encourage and help young STEM students, is that I've majored in biology. I love biology, but I really didn't know what to do next.
Right.
So there were so many things that definitely could have been done. I chose biology education, which has been a great career for me. But there was a lack of knowledge of all of the other options that were there for me. So one of the things that I really want to do is make sure that students and parents are aware of all of the options, because there are so many non-traditional options than the ones that we hear about. We definitely hear about your medical doctor, being a scientist or just an engineer, but we don't hear about the hundreds of other careers that fall in those categories as well.
Yes.
When I first went to Virginia State, I was a pre-med major because I had an interest in science, and I wanted to be a brain surgeon. And unfortunately, I got to Virginia State and started doing other things other than going to class. And so that derailed my doctor path. But anyway, I had an interest in science too. But back when I went to Virginia State, they weren't really talking about STEM. And they weren't talking about the importance of STEM. And my teachers didn't do anything to keep me engaged and make sure, I was held accountable for coming to class and really, really interacting with me as a student who had the potential to, follow it through, but for whatever other reasons called partying, I was doing something different.
And the thing that I talk to parents about, as well as students when I speak to them, is that you need to be preparing for the future. Right, and so STEM is the future. It's here now, and it is the future. And so, as I was looking at, and someone just asked again, what does STEM stand for? It is an acronym: science, technology, engineering, and math. And all of those are different fields, but they all kind of work together, so to speak. And so it is. And so when I looked at Black Panther and I saw the sister and all the technology and everything that she was doing, and not just that, her excitement about it and her passion about it and everything that she could do, and how they depended on her to make sure that everything was running so that they could run Wakanda. And so I just thought it was so awesome. And what did you get from it?
Well, I mean, definitely I loved Princess Shuri. And she really, when you think about what she did, she really was the strength behind what was going on in Wakanda. You remember all of the computer science skills that she was using, all of the technology she was using to, save the American that came to Wakanda. But it was definitely amazing. But what was most inspiring about what she did, it was innovative. So it's not something that you've seen before. And that is really what I like to promote when I'm talking about STEM. It's not that we're preparing you for jobs that are already here. We're preparing you to think about, just use your imagination to think about jobs and skills and professions that don't exist. And once again, I talk to students, when you're using your phone or using your iPad, your computer, don't just play the games and enjoy the device. How can you create a new device? How can you create a new app?
Absolutely.
I wanted to share, I was just at a computer science summit this week, and the statistics it shows that there were, give me 1 second, I'm sorry, 1,229 graduates for all computer science in 2016 who earned a PhD. And this is from the demographics in science and engineering graduate programs. So 1,229 in all computer science. 358 were women, and only 62 were minorities. So we're looking at 70% of our population that's not really playing a role in, and particularly that's computer science, which is really becoming the base for all jobs. When you talk about public education, that is something that is really being pushed, is computer science, because no matter what field you go into, you will need to have some basic computer science skills to do your job.
Right, and as I was looking up the occupations, I was thinking, wow, I had no idea that all these occupations are associated with STEM, and I just wrote down a few: software developer, statistician, mathematician, cost estimator, mechanical engineer, accountant, civil engineer, IT manager, and the list just went on and on and on. And so we know that these jobs are here to stay, and they're going to look so different, and that we need our youth to be prepared to walk into some of those roles so that they can help move this country forward.
And I work for an organization who one of the primary missions is cybersecurity.
Yes.
And so cybersecurity is huge. And, if we could channel our kids' energy towards the future, not only are the people we're hiring to do cybersecurity getting paid well, they're getting retention incentives on top of that.
Right.
They're getting recruitment incentives on top of that. And so, it's important because it's going to keep us safe. As we know, we all know somebody who's been hacked. If not ourselves, I've been hacked several times. My husband has been hacked. And so that is really real. And so if, it's going to be some money to be made in those STEM fields. And so if we can start to channel our kids into those fields and get them interested in that early, as Yvonne said, that's going to be critical.
And another thing that Yvonne said, sorry, Yvonne, I don't know if you all heard her. She said when she majored in biology, she didn't really understand all the options available to her as a career. And I talked to people, as an HR director and hiring people, that they majored in biology and they didn't know what their options were. And so you want to talk about a little bit about, what's happening now. How are we even telling students, these are the options for you if you major in biology? There's so much information out here. We really don't, Go ahead.
I definitely think that students and K through 12 as well as colleges are preparing students more for what is available for STEM. And once again, it's not just biology, but we hear things like, even if you're pre-med or if you're biology, you're going to be a doctor, but the radiologist, your PharmD, your environmental scientist, and using those skills, an environmental engineer, looking at water, agricultural science. You think about the foods that we're eating, and the water that we're drinking. There are people that's working behind the scenes for this. So once again, there may be what you may consider non-traditional jobs, but they exist. And as it relates to computer science, within the next 5 years, the research shows there will be over 1.9 million jobs available. But we will not have enough people to fulfill those jobs. And the hub is right here in the DMV area.
That's right.
So once again, those skills are critical. And I promote the skills, right? I don't really promote a particular career. I promote the skills of being, once again, creative, being a critical thinker, right? Collaboration, because they're collaborating virtually. They're collaborating, obviously, in their space, in their workspace. And you do need to work hard to be smart. I mean, STEM professions, it's a rigorous profession. And your child, yourself, if you're out there listening and you're in school, you need to really work hard. You need to read. You need to write. Those basic skills are still very important. That arithmetic, So it's really not far from what our founding educators promoted. It's just, it looks a little different in that we're calling it STEM. The foundational skills are the same. and the job opportunities are endless, and the earning potential for STEM
Yes.
professionals, the earning potential
Yes.
is greater
Yes.
than non-STEM professionals as
That's
well.
for sure.
Yes. And so what we want to do is we want to take a break, and we have 2 callers on the line. So during our break, we're going to try to figure this out, make sure we can get our callers in. And once we come back, we're going to have Yvonne to talk about STEM Girl Shine.
Yes, you are. Woman, thou art great. Woman, thou art great.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Woman, thou art great. Yes, you are. Woman, thou art great. Woman, thou art great.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you
Hello.
keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests
Hello.
as we talk about it.
Woman, thou art great.
Hi there.
Yes, you are. Woman, thou art great.
Wow, we got it figured out. I don't know if we got it figured out, but we do have a caller on the line. Welcome, caller. What can we do for you?
Hi, I have a question for Dr. Colo.
Yes. What's your question?
You mentioned exposure. When we think about exposure, we often see like math enrichment and technology exposure kind of existing in abundance compared to science and engineering. How or what can we do to demystify or create more exposure for science and engineering, especially as parents, those who have maybe less exposure than someone in the school system?
Well, the emphasis of STEM, they really want it to be a more of an integrated approach. So I know that sometimes in conversations, people are still making them separate entities. However, they really all work together. But when it comes to exposure to science and engineering, particularly the engineering, I know there's a lot of exposure with the robotics programs.
Yes.
And I know that, parents, you can definitely, purchase robotic tools at home with the Lego kits. Legos have not only just the building blocks that you see, your, regular Lego, but they also have some robotics pieces that relates to engineering. And basically, when you think about engineering, and there's also a big push for what's called makerspace, when you just give kids recycled materials or any type of materials and just let them go for it. Once again, in a more structured situation, you have your robotics. It's probably the largest engineering exposure for younger kids. And science, you definitely want your kitchen science tools for students to do more of the science experiments, of course, to be safe at home. There are many online sites that offer free things that you can do for science that's most of it is things right out of your kitchen.
Yes, absolutely. Did that answer your question, caller?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
calling. So, Yvonne, talk to us about STEM Girls Shine. What was the motivation behind that, and what exactly do you do with that program?
So STEM Girls Shine is my baby. I've been working on this for a while, but it is now an official 503c nonprofit organization. The purpose of STEM Girls Shine is to build confidence while promoting inquiry, STEM inquiry. I work primarily at this time with elementary girls, and we do a variety of hands-on science, engineering, and technology activities. So we will do coding using code.org. We will do engineering, building with Kiva blocks. We do science experiments. So it's really just exposing them and having them go through a process of understanding that science, engineering, and technology is a process of learning. And in collaboration with STEM Girls Shine is Time Out for Africa, because my
Yes.
STEM Girls Shine organization is an international organization, and Time Out for Africa is an organization that me and my husband run out of Nigeria. But once again, we also do nonprofit work there, and we promote on building up girls in STEM there as well. So we've done STEM expos with STEM Girls Shine in collaboration with Time Out for Africa in Nigeria, in Maryland, and as well as in Suffolk, Virginia.
So how do you get the children and the parents to participate? What do they? Who's your audience?
Yeah, so with this being still a very new organization, and this is great exposure now, I'm working to build the exposure to students outside of the students that I'm working with currently in my community. You can definitely follow me on social media with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at STEM Girls Shine. And right now, I would say my goal is really exposing the girls and the families to current events, what's going on in STEM, but the program will grow to have more, where I will have more access to the young girls themselves.
Oh, okay. So, STEM Girls Shine, how did you come up with that name?
Well, I love STEM.
Yes.
I'm a girl, and we shine.
That's right. She kept it real simple.
Right.
But I will say that, definitely shining and being confident, that is really a major skill for young girls in STEM, because it is a very difficult career, and not just career, but when you think about classes and clubs, it's very difficult to navigate because the numbers are low for females in the STEM classes and clubs. So you do need to be confident. So I use the word shine to promote that confidence.
Yes, and she's not saying difficult to run you away. She's
Right.
saying difficult that you just have to work a little harder if that's your passion, if it's something you're interested in, because the world is for our younger people, and we're trying to let them know what's going to be needed out of them. And so if you have young ones at home who would be interested in some type of science field, not afraid of some hard work, getting into one of those majors can be quite lucrative and quite beneficial to them as well as the community around them.
Absolutely.
And Sharon, you just said something. Hard work. Being afraid of hard work.
Yes.
We're going to have to figure out what we're going to have to do with these kids so that they're not afraid of hard work. Because our kids today are afraid of hard work, mine included. The kids, they have it so easy now. Everything is right at their fingertips. They don't have to work hard for anything. Before we had to go to the library to get information. That exercise in itself was hard work. We had to read encyclopedias. That in itself was hard work. Now all of the kids have to do is push two buttons, and everything that they need is right there in the palm of their hands. And so, Yvonne, do you have any suggestions on what we can do as parents to encourage, do more than encourage, because I've been encouraging mine, and Lord knows that's another topic. But to really, help these kids understand the value of hard work.
Well, you stated a lot of things that are going on, obviously, because you have children, you have a son that's still in high school. But if you think about it, students can push a button and the material is right there. So what is important for us as educators and as parents, teach them how to use the information, and more importantly, teach them how to understand the source of the information, because we know everything that's on the internet is not accurate and it's not
Right.
true. So understanding what valid sources are and how to use that information that's available. And that is why critical thinking skills are so important. You know, engaging your children in conversation about what did they find when they push that button.
That's
you know,
right.
and even from educators, we're not assigning homework where you should not be assigning homework where you're only answering the what is about something, because what is can easily be found. How can you use that information? How can you take that and transfer it to a new situation? So it's really the deeper thinking behind the information that is available.
Right, and you know, being a college professor, thinking about it, and the people that are coming along, critical thinking skills are just not. It's just not a skill that folks have, because everything is right there, and when you try to push some of them to think critically, they push back. Like, why should I do that? The only thing I have to do is Google it. You know, why should I? Why are you even asking me that, Dr. Crater? Why are you asking me that question? Why are you making me think? Why are these questions? I'm like, because we have to have some critical thinking skills in order to move beyond where we are. That's where the growth happens. The growth doesn't happen when you're just thinking the same way. The growth happens through the critical thinking and the actions that you take as a result of that.
And I think part of the challenge, too, is the one-size-fits-alls in the classroom. You know, when you have kids who are a little bit more talented than others, I haven't found that any of my son's classes are really geared towards him and and challenging him. His stuff is so easy to him, he just don't even do it. He's just like, that's just a waste of time. Like, I don't even understand the point of this exercise. And so, you know, I think, you know, we have to be a little bit more creative in the classroom. And my son, he's a reader. And so, you know, that's a black man reading in America is dangerous on top of dangerous. And so, you know, I just wish that there was, you know, I know eventually we'll get there in the classroom, but I just, you know, wish that there was a way that teachers had a little bit more flexibility in how they structure their classrooms and how they teach the children in the classroom.
And I would add to that to say that teachers are also going through a change
Yes.
with the change in society. You know,
Yes.
so much has changed from when you think about a teacher who may have been teaching for 20 or 30 years.
Yes.
They are also in the midst of this 21st century learning and changing, using technology for educational purposes. Also, the way the classroom is structured, you know, is very different than sit and get. So there are a lot
I
of
like that,
changes for
sit and get.
everyone that's in our educational system. And it's not an easy change because the world is changing so rapidly.
Yes, it is.
When you think about mission statements for almost any school district, we are preparing students to be great citizens.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
Right.
That has changed so much over, you know, it's changing rapidly each year.
And I can relate to what Yvonne is saying, because I teach a class online now, and I just don't like it. And that's just old school. You know, it's old school because I like to touch and feel students. I like to see their faces. I like to interact. I like to, you know, give them activities. But when you're online, it's just a different mode of instruction and a different mode of learning. And I'm not so sure how much learning is really happening online. That's just me. And so when you said that, it resonated with me in terms of why am I struggling with this online class? Well, I just don't like it because because I am not able to do my thing. You know, as a teacher, as a trained teacher, you know, I'm grading posts. You know, and
that is a great example.
That's a great
of
example.
Where training is needed for educators as well
That
as
is
for
correct.
the students.
That's correct.
Because students, that is the world that they're
That's where they
in.
are.
We
Yeah,
have to
absolutely.
meet them as well. You know, some things are going to be very basic when it comes to teaching and learning, but there are still a lot of changes that we as the adults in the space have to make changes for, you know, in order to meet the needs of all students.
Right. And so when we teach online, you know, for example, for me, you know, that whole preparation, and it's a mindset, you know, and so my mindset, and so I can imagine, you know, teachers that have been doing things a certain way for so many years, it's the mindset. They're like, okay, this is what works. You know, this is what I know how to do. Now you asking me to go outside actually of our comfort zone, because that's really what they're asking us to do and kind of think outside the box. I do pretty pretty well at it, but I'm just saying I just don't like it. And so because I just don't know if I'm really reaching students the way that I know that I'm reaching students when I'm in the classroom with them face to face.
You know, that's very similar to in the workspace, you know, this whole concept of working from home. You know, a lot of managers think if I can't see my employees, if I can't touch my employees, they're not really working. And so it's the same concept, but that's the direction we're moving in.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as, you know, the leadership in organizations, we're going to have to change our mindsets and figure out how do we do team building when people are not co-located? How do we, you know, keep people engaged when we're not co-located? And as, you know, as the kids come through the schools and then get into college and start taking online classes, they become accustomed to not being co-located and not being visible. And so when they come into the workplace, it's like, skirt, back up, take 3 steps back. This is still how we're doing the business here. And so we got to figure out a way to evolve all the way around.
And I would like to say that all comes from all of the work being done by STEM professionals.
That's right. Absolutely.
When you think about even as something like the Skype, your Outlook calendars, where you can now just communicate, you know, through Outlook as far as face-to-face. Webinars, and of course there are so many different platforms for communicating with people all around the world. But all of those are changes that, once again, we're trying to promote that in education, but I also promote it from the perspective of these are STEM professionals that are helping make the world change in this way.
That's exactly right.
I often think about that animation show from back in the day called The Jetsons.
Oh, yes.
And I keep saying I'm going to go on YouTube and see if I can find some episodes, because I think about the fact that back then in the 80s when I was watching that show, you know, they were doing
or before?
It was maybe the 70s. I'm trying not to date myself here. Maybe in the 70s. Okay, well, in the 70s, the early 70s, and you know they were doing video technology where they were seeing people through video, and so you know. Back then, that just seemed so far off. And yet we had those STEM professionals making that available. And now that's just how we communicate every day. We pick up our iPhones and we don't even call people on the phone anymore. We FaceTime. And so, you know, it's evolving. We just got to keep up.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Colo, how can someone who's interested in donating to STEM donate to your efforts?
Well, right now, definitely if you visit Time Out for Africa, because once again, that is an organization I'm a co-founder with my husband. And you can also see live footage on Time Out 4, and that's the number 4, Africa, where you can see live footage.
This is the second week in a row we had a 4. Last week it was Agent 4 to people.
All the work that's been done. And you can donate. There's a donate button there that you can donate to all of our STEM efforts.
Yes, and I would be remiss, I don't think I mentioned this. Most of you all have heard us talk about the women's conference, my women's conference, and this lovely lady, Yvonda, is a member of the quality assurance team. And so you see how awesome she is, and that is why she is on the team, and I just feel so honored that she's part of the team. She keeps me straight. The creative side, you know, the creativeness is what she brings, and the calmness, and just knowing me and being able to call me offline and say some things I need to hear. But she is a part of the quality assurance team. And so, you know, you got to have some great minds in your circle. Have some great minds in your circle, people who are different than you know, who can, you know, fill in the gap where you may not be as strong. And that is what Yvonda, she and I connected many, many years ago in Calvert County when I was working in Calvert County. And it was as if we were sisters, like, you know, sisters from a different mother and a different father, you know? Yeah. And so.
Because this is a real sister.
Yeah. That's right.
Look, I don't know her like that.
And so STEM is so important. I tell you, as a recruiter, I talk to students all the time, and they say, I'm going to major in biology. And I'm like, so what do you plan to do? I don't know. So at least they want to major in something. So that's a goal. I don't ever discourage kids, but they need to start thinking about, you know, what is it that you're going to do with that? You know, when you major in psychology, when you major in sociology, what are your plans? Because if you're not planning to go to an institute of higher education to further your education, it's going to be quite difficult, actually.
And I would like to just add one more piece about the word shine.
Yes.
And I'll just quickly say, I always love diamonds, of course.
Yes.
Girl loves diamonds.
Yes.
Yes.
But deeper than that, and what I do when I'm working with the young girls to promote confidence to them, I talk about the diamond and the facets of a diamond, and how the more facets you have, the more brilliant you are. Right. So
yes.
these facets
Love
in
it.
life, they're just building up your life skills. So I just want to quickly say to you that we have a little creed, and it says, I am a diamond, more brilliant than the eye can see. Below the surface are the facets that define me, perfectly shaped to reflect the light that you see. I am a diamond. Brilliance is me.
Oh,
All
my.
right. Well, there's nothing else to say after
know,
that, but
right
thank
there.
you for
That's a good way to
joining
close
us, and
out.
you are a diamond.
Yes. Shine on, everyone. Thank
Yes,
you all
thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Yes.
Thank